The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
What is up, everyone? Hour number 2 is off and running here on First and 12. Hope all of you are having a fantastic Sunday morning. We appreciate all of you tuning in to listen to the show however and wherever you're listening. KSL Sports Zone, KSL News Radio, KSL Sports app. So many different ways to listen, or if you're listening on podcast, we appreciate you as well. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. And Alex, man, I remember you and I sat in a podcast studio at Broadcast House before the season, and we previewed the year. And you know, I thought I was a little bit bold saying Utah would lose 3 games this season. I thought I was a little bit going out on a limb.
I said 2. I said 2, and I got killed. And one of them I said, I could see them losing to Iowa State at home later in the year. People were like, Kyle Whittingham doesn't lose games at home, you idiot. Do your research before you open your mouth.
Now they're losing every week. Utes are now on a 6-game skid. Let's unpack what happened in the Rumble in the Rockies here on First and 12.
The Utah Utes post-game analysis.
Isaac Wilson threw for 2 touchdowns, but he threw 3 interceptions, and a couple of them, Mitch, especially that last one, was just such a freshman's mistake, just like keeping the play alive with your feet. You got to live to get it to another down. You got to live to play another down. And when you throw that ball straight into a defender, like, he could have easily just thrown that thing away. And I know he wanted to make plays. I know. Look, the team at that point, I think it was 24 to 35, and they had just gotten a fumble back or a pick or something like that. And I think that they were like, okay, look, we just got this thing back. We go down and score. Then we're looking at a 32-35 game if they were able to get the 2-point conversion. And then we're in business, right? If you're Utah, that's what you're thinking. And instead, you throw a pick like that, and then everything fell apart. Colorado scores 2 more times, 49-24. Kyle Whittingham now in his career is 11-3 against Colorado. We knew this was going to be a tough one, but, man, all the energy was on the side of the Buffaloes.
It was, and it only continued to build when LeJontay Wester had that punt return for a touchdown.
Right.
That put Utah in a hole at 14-3. I can't believe, Alex, when I look at this, and I know Utah is not, what they were with Zach Moss, and I know they had a transfer portal loss with Jalen Glover, but to look at Utah's rushing numbers, 30 carries, 31 yards. That's
wow.
1 yard per carry. That just blows me away because Utah's got a good offensive line. At least I thought they were going to be, and it just hasn't shown up enough. And Mekhi Bernard, he's tried to do everything he can, man, and that guy's laid it all out there. I don't think Utah fans can really get mad at that guy. I mean, he got banged up in the BYU game and still battled through. 11 carries, 20 yards for Mekhi. That just floors me to think of a Utah offense to not have any ability or threat to run the football, and they just stacked the box and almost begged Isaac Wilson to throw because they knew more times than not, he's going to probably make a mistake and not see the correct reads. I mean, it got to a point that's going into the second half where you thought, does Utah need to make a change like they did at Houston? But the only problem is you didn't have a Brandon Rose. You didn't have a Sam Heward. You only had Luke Batari, and it's like, well, got to keep rolling with Isaac Wilson. And there was flashes. There was moments that one to Dorian Singer was a great play. But outside of that, there wasn't much to write home about for young Isaac in his freshman season here.
How does Utah handle these last 2 games? I mean, other than just, Morgan Scalley's going to get his defense as dialed up as he can get. But the next couple of weeks, Iowa State coming to Salt Lake, and then you go to UCF. I mean, that's a brutal trip to have to take when you're already, in this bad losing streak. And then, hopefully they can get something back from Iowa State. But Iowa State is, on this they're one of these 2-loss teams in the Big 12. And they're like, look, we got to win out if we want a shot at getting to They got to win that game at Utah. Then they got to play in Farmageddon to try to make sure that they can stay alive for this thing too. So they have everything in the world to play for still. And Utah right now feels like they have nothing to play for. It's just like get to the offseason. That's the feel. And obviously, these young men want to play, and some guys got to put some tape together so they can get to the NFL. But man, I'm telling you, the injury bug has been so bad, and you already just want to throw your hands up and go, okay, move on to the next year. But they've got a couple more weeks to try to figure some things out.
It's a lesson this year that Utah's got to find themselves that the things that they built themselves on in the Pac-12 didn't carry over into the Big 12, where you play this pesky underdog role. Well, guess what? There's probably 10 other teams in this league that do the pesky underdog thing, and they do it pretty well. There's a lot of teams that play physical brand of football in this league. Utah's got to find something else. Like, that's your core. That's always going to be the foundation of Utah. But that is what they thrived on in the Pac-12, being this overlooked team. That wasn't the case. I mean, they had a massive target. A lot of that due to, and you don't know how much that actually was due to, social media. It's an echo chamber at times, but they were the preseason number one. The
right.
media was buying in to this team. They just thought, even Joel Klatt, who was on the call yesterday, death, taxes, and Utah football. And it was that's not showing up this year.
No.
And that's nowhere to be found. And Utah looks pretty mediocre at best. I mean, Utah's one of the worst teams in the league. They're right there with Oklahoma State. That's where they're at right now. Yeah. And so they've got to find who they're going to be in this new league, and having some more intel and actual experience of how this league operates, the officiating style. I mean, that's well documented how Utah feels about the officials, at least in that BYU game. Like, having that understanding of how this league operates, I think can help Utah. We know in this conference you can turn it around in a hurry. It's not like, oh no, Utah football is done forever. But for this year, I mean, this was a real kind of learning moment here. I'm curious to see how they respond. I think what also adds to the frustration here is just you don't know how much longer Witt's got. And it felt like this was a turnkey, go to the Big 12, and you're ready to contend for the playoff, And I think that's where there's real disappointment, because every team has their down years. It just happens in college football. But I think that's where there's a little bit of worry, because the end is closer than any of us probably realize when it comes to Witt. I mean, he set an unofficial timeline at Big 12 Media Day by saying he's not going to coach in that Utah-Miami game in 2027. So time is ticking. If they want to get him to the playoff, they got to act quick, and this is going to be a key offseason for those efforts.
Let's take a break. We'll come back. When we do, our sound that we're going to listen to turns over to the BYU side of things, who took their first loss of the year against Kansas last night, 17-13. Kalani Sitake, his thoughts coming up right around the corner. Stay here. It's 97.5. It's the KSL Sports Zone. It's also KSL News Radio. Happy Sunday, too. We'll be right back.